Hello dear learners, Vanakkam. I am Dr. P. Paramadayalan. In the previous lecture, we discussed finite and non-finite verbs. However, we have not discussed all the classification of non-finite verbs. Only we discussed the infinitive form in the last lecture. Moving forward, let us explore the other categories of non-finite verbs in Tamil, which include verbal participle, relative participle, and conditional form. First, let us discuss the verbal participle in detail. The verbal participle is referred as Vinayacham in Tamil. It is an incomplete verb that functions as a bridge connecting one action to another within a sentence. It essentially indicates that an action is subordinate to a subsequent main verb. It cannot stand alone as a completed thought. It requires a following finite verb in order to complete the sentence meaning. The verbal participles are used to construct the compound and complex sentences. We will discuss it in detail while we discuss the topic types of sentences. Now, we will see how the verbal participles are being formed. Majorly, the verbal participle ends with either the oo sound or e sound. It rarely ends with the letter e. One should master in conjugating the past tense markers with the verbs, which exactly helps you to form the verbal participle forms. If anyone is facing problems in conjugating the past tense marker with the verbs, one may encounter many problems in forming verbal participles. Hence, it is most essential to know how all the 8 past tense markers are being conjugated with verbs. Even if you are already familiar with them, I would like to briefly recap these 8 markers now. In, inch, itch, it, in it, it. Now, let us see the rules to be followed to form the verbal participle. Initially, we will see the rule for the first category, the verbs which takes in as a past tense marker. The specific group of verbs mostly ends with oo sound like odu, which means run, velayadu, which means play, kattu, which means shout or yell. The verbal participle is formed by replacing the final oo with e, like odu is changed into odi, which means having run. Velayadu is changed into velayadi, which means having played. Kattu is changed into katti, which means having yelled or shouted. In these examples, the final oo is changed into e. For this category, no suffix is added to form the verbal participle. Now, let us apply the verbal participle form at the sentence level. Avan odi poi parthan, which means he ran and looked, or having run, he looked. குழந்தைகளும் விளையாடி மகிழ்வாங்க, which means children also will play and be happy, or having played, the children also will be happy. அம்மாங்க குழந்தைங்க கிட்டே கத்தி மாளாது, which means mothers will not cease shouting at the children, or having shouted at the children, it is never ending for the mothers. In this category, the verb po is the exception case. Though the verb po takes in as a past tense marker, it is not possible to follow the opposite rule because the verb po is not ended with u. The verbal participle form for the verb po is poi, which means having gone. Let us use the verbal participle form poi at the sentence level. Avan ஊருக்கு போய் வந்தான், which means he went to his hometown and came back, or having gone to his hometown, he came back. Now, let us see the verbal participle form which takes the suffix e. The verb which take inch, each and each as past tense marker, those verbs take the suffix e after the tense marker to form the verbal participle. First, let us see some of the examples for the past tense marker inch, each. Array, which means slap. Ade, which means attain or reach. Keelpadi, which means obey. The structure for the verbal participle for this category is verb stem plus past tense marker plus suffix e. For examples, array plus inch, each plus e. It becomes arrange, which means having slapped. Arrange is the verbal participle form for the verb array. The same pattern must be followed for this category to form verbal participle. Arrange is verbal participle form for the verb ade. Keelpadinji is the verbal participle form for the verb keelpadi. Let us use the verbal participle form at the sentence level. Amma arrange sonna, which means mother slapped and said, or having slapped mother said. அவன் இலக்கே அடைஞ்சு பெற்றான், which means he reached his goal and received, or having reached his goal he received. மகன் அம்மாவுக்கு கீழ்ப்படிஞ்சு நடந்தான், which means the son obeyed his mother and behaved, or having obeyed his mother the son behaved. Now let us see some of the examples for the past tense marker each. Padi, which means read. Madi, which means fold. Nadi, which means act. The structure for the verbal participle for this category is also same. Verb stem plus past tense marker plus suffix e. Example, padi plus each plus e. It becomes padichi, which means having read. Padichi is verbal participle form for the verb padi. The same pattern has to be followed for this category to form verbal participle. Madichi is the verbal participle form for the verb madi. Nadichi is the verbal participle form for the verb nadi. Let us use the verbal participle form at the sentence level. மாணவங்க பாடங்களே படிச்சு வந்தாங்க, which means students studied the lesson and came, or having studied the lesson students came. என் மக பாயை மடிச்சு வச்சா, which means my daughter folded the mat and kept, or having folded the mat my daughter kept. Now let us see the rules for the fourth category, which takes it as past tense marker. This group of verbs also ends with u sound, like nadu, which means plant, todu, which means touch, sapidu, which means eat. In order to form the verbal participle form for this category of verbs, the final letter of the verb is dropped and the tense marker it is added. At last, add the suffix u. For example, let us take the verb nadu. As we have discussed just now, the final letter of the verb is dropped and it becomes na. Then add the past tense marker it with na. Now we can get nat. Next, add the suffix u with nat. Finally, we get verbal participle form nattu for the verb nadu. The same procedures have to be followed for this category. The verbal participle form for the verb todu is tottu, which means having touched. The verbal participle form for the verb sapidu is sapittu, which means having eaten. Let us see the verbal participle form in the sentence level. அவன் மரக்கண்ணு நட்டு சென்றான். He planted a sapling and went. Or having planted a sapling, he went. அவங்க சாப்பாடு சாப்பிட்டு போனாங்க. They finished their meal and left. Or having finished their meal, they left. Now let us move on to the next past tense marker in it. For examples, ta, which means give, share, which means join. The structure for the verbal participle form for this category is also same. Verb stem plus past tense marker plus suffix u. Ta plus indit plus u. It becomes tandu, which means having given. Tandu is verbal participle form for the verb ta. The same pattern has to be followed for this category to form the verbal participle. சேர்ந்து is verbal participle form for the verb share. Now let us use the verbal participle form at the sentence level. அரசன் மக்களுக்கு தந்து மகிழ்ந்தான். The king gave to the people and felt happy. Or having given to people, the king felt happy. குழந்தைங்க சேர்ந்து விளையாடினாங்க. The children joined together and played. Or having joined together, the children played. Now let us move on to the next two past tense markers, indit and ir, which follows the same rule to form the verbal participles. For examples, alu, which means rule, peru, which means receive. In order to form the verbal participle form for this category of the verbs, the final letter of the verb is dropped and the tense marker indit and ir are added. At last, add the suffix u. For example, let us take the verb alu. As we have discussed just now, the final letter of the verb is dropped and it becomes a. Then add the past tense marker indit with a. Now you can get andit. Next, add the suffix u with andit. Finally, we get the verbal participle form and for the verb alu. The same procedures have to be followed for this category. The verbal participle form for the verb peru is petru, which means having received. Let us use the verbal participle form at the sentence level. அவன் இந்த நாட்டை ஆண்டு மடிந்தான். He ruled this country and passed away. Or having ruled this country, he passed away. அவ பரிசு பெற்று மகிழ்ந்தாள். She received the prize and felt happy. Or having received the prize, she felt happy. Now let us move on to the next past tense marker, it. Let us take the verb kodu, which means give. The structure for the verbal participle for this category is verb stem plus past tense marker plus u. For example, kodu plus double it plus u. It becomes koduthu, which means having given. Koduthu is verbal participle form for the verb kodu. The same pattern has to be followed for this category also. Now let us see the next non-finite form, relative participle. The relative participle is a non-finite verb form that functions as an adjective to modify a noun. Hence, it is also called as adjectival participle. In English, a relative class usually follows the noun. For examples, the boy who ran is my friend. In Tamil, the relative participle must precede the noun and acting exactly like an adjective. For example, padikura pasanga, the kids who study. Samikura amma, the mother who cooks. Here, padikura and samikura is relative participle which precedes the noun pasanga and amma and function as an adjective in a sentence. Padikura and samikura are non-finite verb that can't give a complete meaning alone. It always depends with the finite verb to give a complete meaning. The relative participle comes in all the three tenses. Let us see some examples. The structure of the relative participle is verb stem plus tense marker plus suffix a or For the present and past form of relative participle, it takes the suffix a. The future form of relative participle takes the suffix Let us see some of the examples. நான் படிக்கிற புஸ்தகம், the book that I read. உளவியல் தெரிஞ்ச அம்மாங்க கட்டுப்படுத்துறாங்க, the mothers who knew psychology control. என்னை பரிசோதிக்கும் மருத்துவர் வராராம். It seems that doctor who will examine me is coming. In the above examples, the underlined words are relative participle forms. Let us analyze the form in order to clearly know the structure of relative participle. Initially, we will analyze the present form of relative participle padikara. It is segmented as padi plus ikku plus ir plus a. Here, padi is verb root, ikku is linking particle, ir is present tense marker, a is suffix of relative participle. As we discussed earlier, the linking particle ikku is used between the verb stem and tense marker for the strong verbs in present tense. Let us analyze the past form of relative participle. Therinja. It is segmented as theri plus injich plus a. Here, theri is verb root, injich is past tense marker, a is suffix of relative participle. Now, let us analyze the future form of relative participle. Parisodikkum. It is segmented as parisodi plus ik plus Here, parisodi is verb root, ik is linking particle, is future tense marker and suffix of relative participle. As we discussed earlier, the linking particle ik is used between the verb stem and the tense marker for the strong verbs in future tense. Finally, we will discuss the conditional form of non-finite verb. The conditional form is a non-finite verb form used to express a condition that must be met for another action to occur. This is a subordinating verb form. It cannot stand alone and never gives a complete meaning. It always depends with finite verb. The structure of the conditional form is as follows: verb stem plus past tense marker plus suffix a. Let us see a few examples in general. நீ வந்தா நான் தருவேன், which means if you come I will give. நீ படிச்சா நான் கொடுப்பேன், if you study I will give. நீ கும்பிட்டா கடவுள் கொடுப்பாரு, if you worship Almighty will give. Now we will see the examples which are used in the conversation of this lesson. சமைக்கிற அப்ப கத்தனா அவங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்கும், which means if they shout while cooking it will be difficult for them. படிக்கிற பசங்க ஒன்று சேர்ந்து விளையாட ஆரம்பிச்சா சமைக்கிற அம்மாவுக்கு பிரச்சனை. If the studying kids start playing together, it will be problem for the mother who cooks. In the above examples, the underlined words are conditional form. Let us analyze the form in order to clearly understand the structure of conditional form. Let us analyze the conditional form Vanda. It is segmented as follows: Va plus ind, it plus a. Here, va is verb root, ind, it is past tense marker, a is suffix of conditional form. We will see the next conditional form Padicha. It is segmented as follows: Padi plus ich plus a. Padi is verb root, ich is past tense marker, a is a suffix of conditional form. Now we will see the next conditional form Kumbita. It is segmented as follows: Kumbidu plus it plus a. Kumbidu is verb root, it is past tense marker, a is suffix of conditional form. Now let us see the vocabulary which is used in the lesson and know how the verbal participle relative participle and conditional form used at the sentence level. எங்க வீட்டுக்கு, to our home. ஒரு நாள், one day. விருந்துக்கு, to feast. வாங்க, please come. எங்க வீட்டுக்கு ஒரு நாள் விருந்துக்கு வாங்க. Please come to our home one day for a feast. அடுத்த வாரம் means next week. வரேன், will come. அடுத்த வாரம் வரேன். I will come next week. உங்க மனைவியும், your wife. உங்க குழந்தைங்களையும், children. அழைச்சி வாங்க, which means bring. உங்க மனைவியையும் குழந்தைங்களையும் அழைச்சி வாங்க, which means bring your wife and children too. அழைச்சி வரேன், will bring. நம்ம குழந்தைங்களும், which means our children also. ஒன்னா means together. விளையாடி, having played. மகிழ்வாங்க, feeling happy or enjoy. அழைச்சி வரேன், நம்ம குழந்தைங்களும் ஒன்னா விளையாடி மகிழ்வாங்க, which means I will bring, having played together, our children will be happy. ஆமாம் means yes. படிக்கிற பசங்க, kids who study. ஒன்று சேர்ந்து, together. விளையாட, to play. ஆரம்பிச்சா, if start. சமைக்கிற அம்மாவுக்கு, mother who cooks. பிரச்சனை means problem. ஆமாம், படிக்கிற பசங்க ஒன்று சேர்ந்து விளையாட ஆரம்பிச்சா சமைக்கிற அம்மாவுக்கு பிரச்சனை. Yeah, if the studying kids start playing together, it will be problem for the mother who cooks. பொதுவா means in general. அம்மாங்க means mother. குழந்தைங்க கிட்டே with children. கத்தி having shouted or yelled. மாளாது can't end or can't stop. சமைக்கிற அப்ப during cooking. கத்தனா if shout. அவங்களுக்கு means to them. ரொம்ப means very. கஷ்டமா means difficult. இருக்கும் means to be. பொதுவா அம்மாங்க குழந்தைங்க கிட்ட கத்தி மாளாது. சமைக்கிற அப்ப கத்தனா அவங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்கும். In general, mothers can't stop yelling at their kids. If they shout while cooking, it will be difficult for them. உளவியல், which means psychology. தெரிஞ்ச அம்மாங்க, the mother who knew. குழந்தைங்களே, children. கட்டுப்படுத்துறாங்க means control. உளவியல் தெரிஞ்ச அம்மாங்க குழந்தைங்களே கட்டுப்படுத்துறாங்க. Mothers who knew psychology control their children. ஆமாம் means yes. சரி means all right. நாளைக்கு means tomorrow. என்னே means me. பரிசோதிக்கும் means examine. மருத்துவர் means doctor. வராராம் means it seems. நான் வரேன் means I will come. சரி, நாளைக்கு என்னை பரிசோதிக்கும் மருத்துவர் வராராம், நான் வரேன். All right. It seems the doctor who will examine me tomorrow is coming. I hope you have acquired these new vocabulary words and sentence structures, which will now enable you to construct compound and complex sentences in Tamil. While mastering this advanced form can be challenging for beginners, they are essential for strengthening your command of the language. Now, let us see the conversation which goes between two friends, namely Murugesan and Murugan. You are advised to watch the flow of the conversation carefully in order to build fluency. The title of this lesson is Virunduambal, which means hospitality. முருகன், எங்க வீட்டுக்கு ஒரு நாள் விருந்துக்கு வாங்க. Please join for a feast at our home one day. முருகேசன், அடுத்த வாரம் வரேன். I will come next week. முருகன், உங்க மனைவியும் குழந்தைங்களையும் அழைச்சி வாங்க. Bring your wife and children too. முருகேசன், அழைச்சி வரேன். நம்ம குழந்தைங்களும் ஒன்னா விளையாடி மகிழ்வாங்க. Having played together, our children also will be happy. முருகன், ஆமாம், படிக்கிற பசங்க ஒன்று சேர்ந்து விளையாட ஆரம்பிச்சா சமைக்கிற அம்மாவுக்கு பிரச்சனை. Yeah, if the studying kids start playing together, it will be problem for the mother who cooks. முருகேசன், பொதுவா அம்மாங்க குழந்தைங்க கிட்டே கத்தி மாளாது. சமைக்கிற அப்ப கத்தனா அவங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருக்கும். In general, mothers can't stop yelling at their kids. If they shout while cooking, it will be very difficult for them. முருகன், உளவியல் தெரிஞ்ச அம்மாங்க குழந்தைங்களே கட்டுப்படுத்துறாங்க. Means the mother who knew psychology controlled the children. முருகேசன், ஆமாம். Means yes. முருகன், சரி, நாளைக்கு என்னை பரிசோதிக்கும் மருத்துவர் வராராம். நான் வரேன். Alright, it seems the doctor who will examine me tomorrow is coming. We will see later. In the end of the conversation, we use the sentence நான் வரேன். Its literal meaning is I come. But in the context of the conversation, it gives different meaning. Its meaning is we will see later. Let us discuss the Sandhi rule which used in the lesson. When words ending in the accusative case marker a and the dative case marker ku are followed by the words starting with the hard consonant ik, ich, ip, ip, those consonants are indeed doubled. For examples, என்னே பரிசோதிக்கும், which means the doctor will examine me. புஸ்தகத்தை கொடு, which means give the book. பூனையே சீண்டாதே, which means don't tease the cat. வழியே தேடு, which means search for the way. ஊருக்கு போனாரு, which means he went to native town. சென்னைக்கு சென்றான், which means he went to Chennai. 10 மணிக்கு தூங்கு means sleep at 10 o'clock. Having reviewed the grammatical structures presented herein, you may now apply these non-finite verb forms to facilitate the creation of complex and compound sentential patterns. I appreciate your focused attention throughout this session. Keep watching, keep learning, keep practicing. நன்றி, வணக்கம் and happy learning.